I'm the CEO and one of the founders of a company called Thrive Homes, and we do accessible modifications. So think of things like wheelchair ramps, grab bars, elevators, and pretty much everything in between. And we do that through Medicaid funding in the state of Kansas and Missouri, and then we're working on expanding into a couple of other states, hopefully at the beginning of this next year. And then through our work on the Master Plan on Aging, which Eileen and I also worked together on, and the Affordable Housing Subcommittee of that, I've had the privilege of speaking with a lot of incredible people, some developers, some people that work at the state, county, and city levels of government, and we've had a lot of conversations around this, and a lot of those conversations have informed kind of what we're going to discuss today. With that said, I'll let Scott introduce himself.
Yeah. Thank you. Scott Swaggart, as Christian kind of said, right now just background, I've been in real estate and investing in ISL properties and affordable workforce housing for about the past 12 years. And the last 6 months, I guess, really, we've been working on creating a new platform that's really focused around affordable construction materials and trying to get costs down to create more affordable housing. So that's what we're going to talk about here in a few.
We good. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So by way of introduction, as I said, we're going to talk about three basic things today at kind of a high level. First is leveraging grants, donations, and investments, which is very timely given our last discussion on SB 40 boards and some of the funding that they have available to them, in addition to foundations and other private investors. We'll talk about property tax credits and abatements and how those can be leveraged with affordable housing to incentivize more and lower the cost of rents. And then we'll also be talking about, Scott will be talking about reducing building costs. This is by no way or means supposed to be a silver bullet to solve this problem. I think as we've all talked about, there's a lot of really great, current either tax credits or funding mechanisms to help kind of spread costs or reduce costs, but all of these things are ultimately going to need to work together to affect the kind of change that we need. And additionally, with additional background, so everyone has kind of already really well, I think, outlined really well the current state of LIHTC specifically. And during Wayne's presentation, he was mentioning obviously that the LIHTC units that are currently in existence today are starting to fall off the rolls, or at least the ones that were, the 15, 30-year periods. And so the current units that are being developed are effectively just replacing the ones that are falling off the rolls. And so that, is kind of stagnating. We're not getting additional units. And if anything, as Wayne said, we're projected to lose, 20% or so of units. At the same time, the demand is continuing to go up, and building prices and costs are continuing to go up in accordance with that as well. So our thesis is that with the appropriate financial structuring, we can have access or bring a lot of capital that is currently being sidelined either through foundations or community partners and nonprofits, and even just private investors to the table and help come in either as a capital stack partner or purchase materials across the board to be able to either incentivize more development or just add more units to currently approved developments through LIHTC or other funding sources. So to kind of go into this, I wanted to use a current day example on a case study of an organization called water.org. Some of you may be familiar with it. Matt Damon's one of the founders of this organization, and the other founder, ironically, is based out of Kansas City, and I've had the privilege of meeting with him a couple of times. But they were a nonprofit that was started back in the 90s, and effectively what they were doing is drilling wells in areas where pure water was difficult to find. So Sub-Saharan Africa and the Amazon and different places like that. And so what they started doing was just accepting donations to their 501c3 and then taking those donations and then drilling wells. And so Gary White, one of the founders, the one in Kansas City, when we were talking about this, was just telling me how difficult it was. I mean, they had no way to ensure that these projects were actually getting done. They had to wire money through multiple intermediaries and then deliver cash, and they just had a lot of problems with scaling. And so what they did was they changed their model a little bit to move away from actually drilling the wells to providing microloans. Now, initially they were still, accessing the money to give these microloans out through the donations they received with the nonprofit. So what they did next was they expanded the ability for themselves to have access to capital to donate out in the form of microloans by creating what was called a social impact fund, essentially an investment fund that anyone who wanted to invest, whether it was a foundation or a corporation who had some sort of social conscience or purpose. BlackRock is an example of this. They have an ESG fund, for example, an environmental social governance fund. And so these types of organizations have all this money that is sitting on the sidelines, and generally the way, we'll go into how that's normally, how foundations normally grant money or give money, but effectively all this money was sidelined. And so by creating a social impact fund, to date they've raised close to $500 million they've been able to put into this cycle of microloans, and as a result of that, they went from helping hundreds or thousands of people to helping, to date, roughly 70 million people, which is just a simply incredible amount of scale. But he attributed their success and the ability to help as many people as they have to this creative financial structuring, and specifically the nonprofit-owned social impact fund that people can invest to. Can you go back 1 second? One other point is that you would think by doing this that the repayment rate on these loans, since they're not, there's no credit score generally to the individuals that receive these loans to pay for water tap fees and things like that. I did leave that point out. That's what they were using the microloans for, was to pay the water tap fees. But you would think the repayment rate on that would be less, but it's actually higher than the standard repayment rate across the microloan industry. So just to close the loop real quick, I did overlook this. One of the things that they do, or the way that they get water to so many people, is through those microloans. A village of, let's say, 100 people who would normally get a well drilled now have access to capital or to a loan that they can pay for a water tap fee. And so companies in different areas who may otherwise not have had any reason to go out there now have effectively 100 paying customers in these villages that they can then subsidize the water tap fees for. So it was really innovative. So some of the key takeaways from this is that creating a social impact fund helped Water.org and Water Equity, as an example, have access to a significantly larger amount of capital. And we believe that by creating this sort of model, that the ability to access capital that is currently either sidelined or we're not familiar with how to get into a system like affordable housing, that's how we can do this. And again, we've talked about some of the SB 40 boards as an example, but I think there's a lot of other examples, which we'll go into in a second. So this is 2023 charitable giving by source, and I mean it breaks out every section here. But foundations alone in 2023 have donated over $100 billion, and you factor in all the other donations from individuals and corporations, and we're at close to $500 billion, or a little over $500 billion. Now this does not take into account one really important component, which is the foundations that are donating this money. This is not counting the other 95% they're not donating, which is in the form of usually an investment. And so we'll go to the next slide. This is showing, and hopefully you can see this okay, but we will publish this slide deck as well. So if you want to read into this some more, we'll have it distributed, and I'll have it also on our website as well. But these, out of the 4 ways that foundations specifically can donate or get money out of their foundation and put to use for their social purpose and their cause, only one of the ways generally is used, and that's through donations and grants. And generally foundations they have a requirement to donate or grant at least 5% a year of their total funds in their foundation. Many take the other 95% and they put it into the S&P 500 or some other form of investment, so that it creates a return that then ensures stability and sustainability for their foundation. And so as a result, these other 3 methods, the PRIs, which is a really popular, it's called program-related investments, foundation market investments, and expenditure responsibility grants, those 3 are not currently being leveraged specifically in the form of affordable housing. So using the SB 40, I'm kind of picking on that, but as an example, if they had, let's say, that $30 million that was mentioned inside of an account, they could donate and grant that money out to a development to make it happen, or partner with a developer, a light tech developer, as part of the capital stack. But if they were to then invest instead that money, they could get a return on that money. So it's actually creating a 4 or 5% return instead of just donating out one time, which again, still donating in itself, I think is incredible. It achieves the impact and the mission of the organization and ensures that housing is being provided to the individuals that need it. But ultimately, whether they donate 10% of that money or whatever it is to incentivize development, the remaining 90% should and can be invested in affordable housing through using a similar form like this, like a social impact fund. So I'm a visual person, so of the 4 ways to give money through a foundation, this is currently all that's being done. It's through the process of grants and donations. So I mentioned social impact funds, and I know this is all complex. We'll have a very long, hopefully, Q&A session if anyone has additional questions, and we can kind of dive into this a little bit. But social impact funds, again, would enable sideline capital through foundation, PRIs, program-related investments, which provides a return on capital for those foundation partners. It can also partner with, again, private corporations or private investment companies such as BlackRock or Vanguard, who traditionally have not been involved in any sort of social impact investments. But recently, especially as affordable housing is becoming a hotter topic, they have portions of their funds, BlackRock specifically, that are specifically allocated to ESG type causes or social causes. And so I think this is something that Water.org has levered effectively through their subsidiary Water Equity, which is a social impact fund. But to date, I've not seen anyone do this for affordable housing yet. So the other thing is it really allows people to invest in getting a return on that instead of it just being a one-time thing, which I've also mentioned too. So the way that I think that this will be most effective, and if, for example, there was a social impact fund, people donated to it, it has a large pool of capital. The way that I think this could be most effective is to loan out that money almost like a bank in the form of a subprime loan. And as a way to illustrate the impact that doing this could have, number one, by creating a return on that investment long-term, ensuring sustainability, which is important to foundations in any cause. And I'd say what is one of the difficulties with our current processes and systems not allowing for that sustainability cycle long-term is, and this is a visual representation, again, because I'm a visual person. One of the best ways to do this is through subprime loans, we believe. And so by creating a social impact fund, it allows the foundations to access the majority of their money, actually getting a return on that investment, in addition to the grants and donations, and partnering with institutional investors. So this would be a visual representation of what something like this could look like. And then from a social impact fund, a subprime loan. So as an illustrative example, this is a case study, and I was just using round numbers. It may not be 100% accurate, but for illustrative purposes, if there was a duplex and the cost of that duplex to fully develop was $300,000, one of those units would, let's say, be $150,000 of total costs. So at a current market rate interest rate of 8.5% on a 25-year amortization, your debt service on that is $1,200 a month. So when you add on property taxes and insurances, your total cost to the individual is around $1,500 per month for this example. When you put a 4% subprime interest loan into this position, you remove your total unit costs, your total unit costs go from $1,500 to $1,100, which is $400 more, $400 less than the initial cost of that unit through the current interest rates. Now, I know a lot of LIHTC is kind of backing into this through tax credits and lowering costs that way, but we believe this is an example of how additional affordable housing can be incentivized in a way that is sustainable. So one other thing, that was kind of the first topic related to investments and program-related investments and how foundations, corporations, and others can come together in a more sustainable way long-term to lower costs. This is another example of a way I think that costs can be reduced, and this is through property tax exemptions and abatements. So normally through LIHTC units, these are already either abated at the cost of the land or exempted, as I understand it. I'm not an expert on that side, but for the most part, there's not really property taxes included in those developments, as I understand it today. But when it comes to either an individual that wants to rent to a person with a disability or otherwise, or if an individual wants to get involved with creating and renting out affordable housing, that adds about a 10 to 20% cost in the form of property tax that has to be passed through on those rents, which is a very significant amount of money for the individuals we're talking about serving. And so Missouri Senate Bill 190, I'm curious, has anyone heard of this before, has watched this? I see a couple people's hands up. I think this was a really good first step at trying to solve this problem by, before anyone over the age of 62 to effectively freeze or have their property taxes abated for any increases over the age of 62. But I think it should go a little further to include people with a qualifying disability and for specifically renters who want to rent out homes to individuals with disabilities and otherwise. And so I think that by doing that, it can create, really back up, currently the snake is kind of eating its tail in a way because the state and federal government through subsidies and in voucher programs are either helping pay rent or assisting pay rent or paying it completely. And so as a result, a lot of them, the state is effectively paying itself. Now I know it's a different entity, it's going to the county versus the state, but still, if we're talking about all getting together to solve the problem, it seems to me something that should be done and could be a pretty impactful thing. So to show the impact of what this could look like, this is what rents would look like if you also reduce property taxes off just with a pretty conservative plug. So we went from $1,500 in the far left column there. You add a subprime interest rate and you remove property taxes and you have effectively got those rents under $1,000. Now you layer this in with LIHTC, you layer this in with these voucher programs, and I think this could be a really, really impactful thing. And you talk about how far these dollars could be stretched to either develop more affordable housing or just to stretch those already limited dollars further. I think this is something we should be talking about. And currently, as I said, this is not being done. So I did some Googling to the best, my ability. I'd love if someone has any additional, if someone's heard of this being done, I'd love to talk with them. But my understanding is this is not currently being done. It's being done with Water Equity and Water.org, and I think it's been done, very well and successfully. But the other thing is too, is like I kind of in talking with people, came up with this idea. It's not particularly novel. It's being done in other industries. But I also don't have the time to track this down and do it myself. So what I would encourage anyone here today who is in a position, or whether you're in a nonprofit or you're a developer, and you're interested in talking more about this, I'd be happy to share my notes. As I said, this will be made publicly available on our website. Please, there's no pride of authorship. I just want to get the idea out there to someone who can kind of start taking action on this. So I'm really excited to hear kind of Scott's take on this as well. Scott is going to be talking about reducing the building cost component of this, which I think could even further bring down the costs across the board.
Yeah, so innovation often starts with the simple question of why. And for me, that didn't come out of just curiosity. It came out of frustration and necessity, to be honest. I bought my first ISL property back in 2016. And from 2016 to 2019, we really scaled. We bought dozens of properties, built properties, all affordable ISL workforce housing. And then the pandemic hit in 2020, and that's when everything kind of changed. The banks started to ask why, and really pressuring us to explain ourselves more on, why are our rent rates well below market, forcing us to really maneuver and adjust our portfolio and our focus because we weren't hitting their DCR ratios and several other things, but they had never asked us that before. So this period of frustration really led me to my why journey. Why were material prices escalating out of control, and why were supply chains why was it such an issue with supply chains during COVID? And just digging deeper, and through all that, why in a world where technology has innovated every other industry except for construction, have we stuck with these outdated processes that are still costing us a fortune and not innovating within the construction and real estate world? So through all that journey revealed a truth. The barriers to affordable housing weren't just market forces. They're built into an inefficient system that hasn't been questioned and hasn't been challenged for far too long, aka the supply chain and procurement. And if we didn't ask questions, nothing changes, right? So this led us to really try to find a solution, to dig deeper, and to ultimately create this new platform that we're building right now, Axis, which is designed to revolutionize procurement and transform the status quo. You see, innovation can't continue to be ignored in construction. If we want to truly provide affordable housing and get our costs down, we're going to have to embrace technology that can help us increase efficiencies and streamline processes. So I will show you real quick if this works. Maybe not.
Hold on a second. Is it YouTube?
Did you give a 22? I read this in 10 about.
Stretch.
Welcome to Axis, where we are using generative AI to drive efficiencies and cost savings across the entire procurement process. Axis is committed to reducing costs and streamlining supply chains, leading to more affordable, sustainable construction. The construction industry is constantly battling disruptions, from unpredictable supply chains to cost overruns and skyrocketing material prices. Axis's all-in-one platform optimizes sourcing, material costs, freight, and shipping, driving greater efficiency and boosting your bottom line. Axis's advanced machine learning models optimize real-time data, empowering smarter decisions that drive significant savings across the entire supply chain while promoting sustainable, eco-friendly sourcing. Axis integrates with platforms like Bluebeam, Procore, and Autodesk, streamlining your processes for greater transparency and efficiency. At Axis, relationships are key. We connect you to pre-vetted suppliers, ensuring quality partnerships and customer service you can trust. With deep construction expertise, Axis identifies inefficiencies and optimizes procurement, giving you more time to focus on delivering projects on time and on budget. Let Axis improve your processes, enhance transparency, and unlock substantial cost savings. The future of construction starts with Axis. Smart, seamless, sustainable.
You see, Axis was born out of necessity, but it was driven by a deeper calling and a moral responsibility to create more affordable housing. The journey isn't one just one of us individually or one company can take alone. The truth is, the status quo really has to go. Everyone in this room is a stakeholder in the future of housing. We really need to disrupt outdated processes and that stand in the way of affordability. We cannot stand by while the outdated methods continue to keep affordability out of this realm and just act like it's okay. We need to become audaciously transformational. Start getting creative, working with each other, figuring out how we can leverage each other's resources and knowledge to impact housing and affordability. We need to push boundaries and rewrite the rules, use technology, and innovate. So yeah, that's Axis, and love it.
And I would say that this conversation, what Eileen has put together and others have contributed to, is an excellent start to doing just that. And Axis, I think you said it can save 10 to 40% on project costs, which is significant, in addition to LIHTC, in addition to housing vouchers, in addition to property tax abatements and credits, and something like that could be passed and collaborated on. In addition to, there's so many other ways outside of just vouchers, and I think, again, vouchers and tax credits are one of the best tools that we have right now. But if we're talking about scaling to meet the need of demand that's going to be coming quickly, then that's something that we're going to have to start getting ahead of right now and thinking about how we can work together more closely with those community partners, more closely with the agencies who are serving the clients that are going to be inside of these developments, and just the community in general. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. It was an honor to be able to speak on this topic. And with that said,